So today is Parshas Lech Lecha, and we already spoke last week about some of the Rabbonim who were talking about each week from Bereshis, sort of a general feeling about the Parsha Bereshis and the Parsha Noach and the Parsha Avraham. So here's a different, or still an extrapolation of that Bereshis is really describes the work of Hashem, the work of God. He was busy creating the world. There's a lot of actions that are, about God's power and God's efforts. Noach is the efforts of man, because there's a big flood. Noach builds the teva. Noach, plants his vineyard, different things connected to Noach, and even the building of the Tower of Babel, that's the efforts of man. And then Lech Lecha comes, and this is really interesting. This is really the cooperation of man and God, because this is the parsha where God actually speaks to man. And not just speaks, but there's a long and involved relationship, because we know Hashem engaged, spoke, commanded Noach to build the teva, but we've said already, and we've spoken, there's a lot of ink spilled about the differences between Avraham and Noach, and the relationship of Hashem and Avraham was, in a way, a lot more developed and a lot more evolved in some way, I guess we could say, than just Hashem telling Noach to build the teva, and Noach says, yes, sir, and he builds the teva. And he comes out and Hashem tells him to be fruitful and multiply. But with Avraham, it's really the beginning of a relationship. We know that there's 10 trials, and also that Avraham is, in a way, the beginning of the conversation of what it means to be a Jew. And I think with what's going on in the world today, it's really good to see the beginning of this conversation and to try and understand what it means to be a Jew and to connect to that identity of us as Jews. So in Parshas Lech Lecha, we begin to read of the convergence between Hashem and his creations. For only when Hashem spoke to Avraham for the first time at the beginning of our Parsha did the era of human and divine cooperation begin. The communication to Avraham was the precursor of what happened at Har Sinai, which would witness the development of this cooperation into 613 mitzvot. So with Avraham Avinu, it wasn't a whole system like it becomes at Har Sinai when we get 613 mitzvot, but it starts off with this communication of Hashem to Avraham, and we're going to look at it, and whatever he tells Avraham to do, and we're going to look in depth at what he actually tells Avraham to do, but basically this is a new level, a new era of cooperation requiring a whole new way of being. And this whole new way of being is going to begin a reality in which man can achieve things that are beyond that which he could achieve through his own efforts. So with Parshas Noach, there's an aspect of mankind operating within their limitations. With Avraham and the communication between Avraham and God, there's the beginning of, you can be so much more than a sophisticated creation. When Hashem created the world, there's the sun and the moon, there's the fishes, there's the water, there's the grasses, there's the animals, then there's humankind, and then there's Chava. And humankind, how limited is that humankind going to be, and how extra ordinary, how beyond just the rational level, yes, we can speak, yes, we can think, yes, we have a cognitive ability, we have an articulating ability, but with this relationship that Hashem starts to develop with Avraham and Avraham with Hashem, it's how can we go beyond even our brains, beyond our physicality, and become this thing that we call transcendent, holy, more than the sum of our parts, so to speak. That's really what the relationship is. And we've been speaking about this before. We spoke about how Yitzchak, his name means to laugh, and his birth was, non-natural in that his mother didn't have a womb, didn't have a uterus. His father was so old, they shouldn't have had blah, blah, blah. But that starts with the relationship with Avraham that's transcendent. So we're going to look at that starting from the very beginning of this week's Parsha. I just wanted to do the Hayom Yom, which we didn't do yet. And I feel like it has some interesting things to tell us. So there were two of them here, but maybe I'll come to them later. So, okay, so let's go to sharing the screen. And we've got the Parsha over here, and we've got it inside. And maybe if there's so many other things here on the screen, but anyway, is it big enough? No, it's a little bigger. Okay. I don't know if it's as big as it.
No, I think you made it smaller now.
I made it smaller. Okay, let's make it bigger. Is it bigger? There seems to be so many other things here. If I stay on page,
it's not even letting you.
Yeah, I don't want all these things here. I don't think that I don't think it's going to help me. Leave page. Just let's. Where's my screen? Where's my screen? There we go. I'm just gonna. I don't think it's gonna make a difference. Okay, so here we are. We got this big parsha, and it's life-changing, right? So the parsha starts off, Vayomer Hashem el Avram, and Hashem speaks to Avram, and he tells him, right? Does somebody else want to read it? Because it's so famous and pivotal and axiomatic and whatever. Does somebody want to read it?
And the Lord said to Abraham, that in the first part.
Yeah, read it in Hebrew. Go back to
sure. Vayomer Hashem el Avram, Lech Lecha me'artzecha umim I don't know my glasses. Umim moladecha, I think. Umi beit avecha el haaretz asher arecha.
Okay, so Vayomer Hashem el Avram, and Hashem speaks directly. He has our spiritual connection. He speaks directly to Avram. Now, this is not Avraham with the hey, he's still Avram. Lech Lecha, go to you, and me artzecha, from your land, umi muladtecha, and from your birthplace, umi beit avicha, and from the house of your father, el haaretz asher arecha, to the land that I will show you. So this is one of those lines in Chumash that has so many different interpretations and so many levels on which we can learn it. So it's always good to start with Rashi, right? He's the one that supposedly explains the Chumash even to the 5-year-old child. So Rashi says, what does it mean, Lech Lecha, go to you? So then Rashi says, who wants to read the first Rashi? It's at the top of the brown square. I know it is a little bit small. It's a little bit, okay.
I need to be a little bigger though. Let's see. I know.
I wonder if you
I
could.
took myself out of full screen, but I'm going to go back into full screen where I can see it. Okay. Go forth. Literally go to you for your benefit and for your good, and there I will make you into a great nation. But here you will not merit to have children. Moreover, I will make your character known in the world.
Okay, so what's Rashi saying when it says Lech Lecha? What is he saying that basic meaning of Lech Lecha is?
To your benefit.
For your benefit, right?
I
Number
never knew
one-
that, Rashi.
Yeah, so this is a great, nice place to start. Number one, over here, you're not going to have children. We know that famous thing, change your makom, change your muzzle.
Right.
So your makom, your muzzle is not good. So go for one thing here, you're not going to merit to have children. If you go and you kind of travel around the world, your reputation will be spread around the world, and everybody will know the work you do and how special you are. So it'll be good for your resume. It'll be good for your fame. It'll be good for your wealth. It'll be good, you'll have children and more people will get to know you. That's what Rashi says. Now, there's other levels of what this means, that it'll be good for you. And then there's the idea of Lech Lecha, go for your own good on a more esoteric level. So this is go to fix your own soul. Go to yourself. Go connect to go for the sake of connecting to your true essence of who you are. In other words, through this journey, you're going to be connecting to what? To Lecha, to your own essence, your own essential identity. And then we'll come back to it a little bit more. Then what does Rashi say? What does it mean? Me'artzecha. So from your land. So these are all the things. Go from your land, go from your birthplace, from your father's house. Rashi says, hasn't he already left his father's house? But Rashi says, well, now it's, distance yourself even more from your father's house. And then go to the land which I will show you. So there's a Rebbe called the Kotzker Rebbe, and I think Melissa just came on. Is that right, Melissa? That's you?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
me.
Okay, well,
Great.
welcome. So the
Thank you.
Kotzker Rebbe, apparently this is an explanation from his grandchildren, his grandson, one of his grandsons. He said, there's no mitzvah that is as unclear as the mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisroel. And where do we see this? We see this right in the beginning where it says, go to the land that I will show you. And what does that mean? What does it mean that I will show you? And it means
Right. What is he going to, literally, what is he going to do? Send an arrow or a street sign?
Exactly.
Right.
Like what on earth does this mean? And then he explains that you can only go to Israel when Hashem shows the land to you. Now, what does that mean? And then, by the way, there's another level of explanation. Go to the land where I will make myself known to you. That's another way of explaining it. Go to the land, El Haaretz, Asher Arecha, where I will make myself apparent to you. That's the land. You'll know that it's Eretz Yisroel because in that land, somehow you'll have another level of relating to me. So this is kind of esoteric on one hand, and on another hand, it's very powerful and it's very deep if we can kind of tease it out. So Israel is given to the people that God calls out to. You need a special privilege to even hear the calling. In other words, we know that there are many people who live in Israel and leave Israel. Actually, I think 150,000. Well, I don't want to quote the numbers wrong, but when the call went out now in the war for reserves, there were plane loads of Israelis flying back from all around the world. They're not living there, but when they need it, they're flying back. But a lot of people do leave Eretz Yisroel, even if they're born there. They don't appreciate what it means to live there. Or we talk about Israel as the land that spits out the people that, in a way, don't kind of get it. They're not on the right vibration of what it means to live there. So this whole thing of going to this land, it's to the land where I will show you who you are. Hashem says to Avraham, Lech Lecha, go to your true self. And it's also the land where Hashem will show himself in that land. You understand that there's two different explanations here. A, you'll encounter your deep self, and B, you'll encounter a revelation of Hashem to you in that land. So I'm going to mute someone because I'm hearing scratches and sounds, and it's a little disturbing. But if you want to,
I muted myself. Sorry, it's just the wind.
Yeah. So if you ask, so then Reb Shlomo Carlebach quotes Reb Leibele Egelu, who says, until Avraham Avinu was told to go to the land of Israel, there wasn't a concept of the Holy Land, or at least in the Chumash, we don't have a place where it's talking about a special land, a special connection to a land, a mitzvah of a land. We don't have that. It starts with Avraham Avinu, and Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach tells a very beautiful story. He says, maybe you have something very precious to you, a special place where you go, that's your private place, and you don't share it with anyone unless someone's very close to you. Only if somebody is very close to you. I'm sort of thinking of little children who have their sort of secret special place, then they show it to their best friend. So only if somebody is very close to you do you feel like you want to share with them this intimate special place that you have. So Hashem doesn't even talk about the Holy Land. He doesn't want to share the Holy Land with anyone except until Avraham Avinu comes, because that's the kind of relationship they have. On the other hand, there's a medrash that says when Noach sent out the dove came back with the olive leaf. And there's a medrash that says that the olive leaf came from a tree in Eretz Yisroel. And I'm going to say something now that does not make sense. So I'm telling it to you ahead of time that it does not make sense, that the waters of the flood didn't affect Eretz Yisroel. And so when Noach sent out the dove, it managed to find this olive branch that came from Eretz Yisroel. Doesn't really make sense to me because the waters covered the whole face of the earth. So I can't imagine how the land of Eretz Yisroel wasn't included. But there's a mention of something special from the land of Israel. But in terms of the actual text, we don't have any reference to it yet. We had a creation of the world, a creation of Adam, Chava, their children, Cain, Hevel, but nothing about special land. And now we have it.
Also, the question is that if the dove did get the olive branch from Eretz Yisroel, how did that determine that if there were no flood there, how did it determine that the rest of the world was
right?
The water receded and they were able to come out of the ark.
Right. So it is an interesting medrash, which I don't really have explanation for, but I'm like, no, there was a mention of the Holy Land before, but I don't really understand that medrash very well. Anyway, then it says, go from your land, from your birthplace, and from your father's house. Now, all of us, we didn't speak with Melissa and ask her to tell us her experience with Eretz Yisroel. Melissa, if you want to unmute us and just tell me if your experience of visiting Eretz Yisroel, if you've ever been to Eretz Yisroel, and how many times you've been, if you feel like it. This will be good to know. But it might be hard to, I don't know, can I ask you, can I unmute you once I've muted you? I don't know. Ask to unmute. Yeah, it's not working. Okay, so we all know that if you want to change yourself and you want to change, oh, Melissa, yeah, do you want to tell us your experience with Eretz Yisrael? Have you ever been there?
No, actually, my whole family has but me. So, but I have, currently though, I have friends who live there. You know, who I grew up with. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Okay, so those of us who've been in Israel, who've spent time in Israel, or anybody who's gone on a trip that inspires a desire to change, right? And if you were a teenager and you took on new things, so you kind of got to let go of your past in some way. So Hashem is saying to Avraham, leave your land and the values and the mores of your land. You know, let's say you lived in Los Angeles or in Hollywood, or you lived in, you know, Portland or whatever, and you want to become religious, you got to kind of leave some of the mores of that place. Not to say that you can't be religious in LA or Hollywood, but it's a little challenging. From your birthplace and from your father's house. So in a way, it's like the general context, then your you know, your birthplace and your father's house, the values of your father's house. The Rambam says the strongest influence on a person is their surroundings. So being able to that even though Avraham was able to withstand the influence of the people in his surroundings, which is, the Rambam says, a Jewish trait, that we can withstand the influence of our surroundings. We're often different than our surroundings. Still, by going to Eretz Yisrael, he was going to be able to reach a whole other level in his spiritual development. In fact, the Zohar says that a person has different aspects of their soul. There's an aspect of their soul that kind of like fits into their body, and then there's an aspect of their soul that's kind of like a mirror reflection of their soul in the upper worlds. And what Avraham was being invited to do was to kind of bring down this higher aspect of his soul down into his being. And the way that he would be able to do that was, I guess, connected to this journey of that's what he was being invited to do. So just to put it in the words of the Zohar, that he has to go to rectify his own soul. In Israel, he would attain previously unreachable heights. Now, this is not just for Avraham, of course, this is for all Jews, because talking energy now and frequency, which is kind of my new language, that there's a frequency to every place, right? There's an energetic reality to every place. And for some reason, the Jewish neshama, it's almost like if you play a violin or a harp and the strings vibrate to a certain you know, they're vibrating. The soul of a Jewish person vibrates to the same frequency as the land of Israel. So when we are there, we're in sync with the frequency of the land, and parts of ourselves that are not, we don't always have access to. We can access more of ourselves when we're in that land, because it's created to be in sync with our neshama vibration, right? The Jewish people and the land of Israel and the Torah, there's something that they all have in common, and they all kind of fit with each other like a finger in a glove. So you've got the land of Israel, the people of Israel, the Torah of Israel, and they all bring out the best in each other because they all a similar flavor, similar frequency, and they go well together. So when a Jew is learning Eastern religions or he's doing other paths, he could get benefit from them, but they're not, it's not a perfect fit. It's not a hand in a glove. When a Jew lives in another land, he can do well, he can be successful, he can earn money, he can, you know, do a lot of things, but it's not a hand in a glove. It's not the place where his soul is going to feel, you know, completely in sync with its surroundings. So in Israel, he's going to be able to appreciate previously unreachable heights. And then this is in the words of the Zohar, that one needs to grasp the root of your soul so you can perfect yourself through revealing the root of your soul down in this world. So in a way, I said that we have these two souls. You got to somehow, being a spiritual person, you got to try and reach up to that higher soul of yours and then pull it down to come into your body and come into your being and become part of your worldly reality. Is that, it's a little abstract, but it's in a way, it's a little graphic as well. It's clear. Like you have the spiritual potential, it's bigger than you, it's higher than you, it's a part of you hanging out in the higher realms. And then as a spiritual person, you want to pull that down and embody it and root it into your own self. So,
Bracha, I'm
yes.
sorry to interrupt, but it keeps coming back into my mind that he was only able to, that Avraham was only able to merit children in Eretz Yisroel. And I'm sure it has to do with, first of all, that the hay is added. We learned that today in the other class,
Right.
that the hay is added to his name. But like you said, all this about potential, but he can't have children outside of where he was before. But once he's in Israel, he's able to have children. And
Well, that's a complicated thing because they
sorry,
have
you can forget about it then.
Don't be sorry. The reason why he couldn't have children was that the mazal, his astrological chart, the way his astrological chart was, if he would go to an astrologer and say, please draw, and he could have gone online, there's like free charts, you know, you put in your birth date and you put in the time of your birth and you put in, you know, the city that you were born, and you can calculate your astro chart. So if he would have done his astro chart, even if he would have been in Eretz Yisroel, until what happened, until well, what you're saying is very interesting, because what we learn a little bit later in the Parsha, there's a midrash that God actually moved the stars. He moved them. He orchestrated them and he changed them. So he changed Avraham's mazal. What we also learn,
Oh, so interesting.
Jumping ahead a little bit, what we also learn is that through his connection with Avraham and getting and inviting Avraham to connect to this higher part of himself, the soul part, you know, there's two parts of us. There's a lower soul and a higher soul. And through getting Avraham and all of us Jewish people really to connect to this higher soul, he's saying, you are going to start functioning on a transcendent level. And the transcendent level is going to be higher than the astrological reality, higher than your astro chart. According to your astro chart, which is according in some way to nature, to the rules of nature, according to your birth date, according to the reality of you in this world in a very worldly way, you don't merit children. But come on this journey with me, connect to me, become transcendent, jump above your natural way of being and functioning. Go on this journey with me to the place that I'm going to show you, and be in a relationship with me of transcendence. You're going to go higher than the astrology. You're going to go higher than the stars. You're going to be above that system, which is limited and is limiting you. You understand? Okay. So we are.
Thank you.
It is part of what I wanted to get to. So it's just kind of a taste of what to come. So, somewhere elsewhere in the Zohar, it explains that every righteous person in this world has two souls, and we all meant to be righteous. One soul in this world and another soul in the higher spiritual worlds above. The main part is above, actually, like a huge part, let's say God above, a huge part of our soul is above, and a mere radiance, this is from the Zohar, a mere radiance, just like a shine, a radiance from that is contained in the physical body. So the task is to draw down the soul from above into a radiance down below. So, okay. So, and then there's even an explanation from the Zohar when Hashem says to Avraham, go out of your land, go out of the heavenly realms, go down to the physical body below. Go from the higher levels of Gan Eden, upper Gan Eden, lower Gan Eden, your land, your father's house, your birthplace, and to the land I will show you, to this physical world. In other words, every neshama that gets born coming from a high place, coming into a low place. I just went a little abstract. Is everybody with me? That every soul, in a way, goes on this journey. So I just, Suri said something about Avraham changing his name from Avram to Avraham. So it's interesting. Suri and I were both listening to the same teacher, Diane Bloomfield, earlier today, and we know, and it's we're not going to discuss it inside today, but Avram and Sarai both got a name change. Sarai, which means like a princess, she lost the yud and she became Sarah. So her name became Sarah instead of Sarai, my princess, I think it means. She becomes Sarah. And that yud, which has the numerical value of 10, let's say you take that yud off her name, Sarai, so now she's just Sar, right? And you divide that yud into 2, and 1 hey, because 5 is a hey, you give to Sarah. Now she's Sarah. And 1 hey you give to Avraham, and he becomes, instead of Avram, he becomes Avraham. So it's interesting. Avraham has to become much more embodied in his body. And so when his name is Avraham, the numerical value of his name becomes 248, which is apparently the number of organs, limbs in a human body. So Avram's journey is to embody the spirituality into his body. That's what this journey is, to go to the land of Israel, to bring down this higher level of soul, and then to live in this land where he'll encounter himself, go to himself, and have Hashem reveal himself. Yeah, that's kind of what it was. And then it continues. I don't know if there are any questions or comments on that so far. Any questions or comments? And then Hashem says to him, Va'e'escha l'goy gadol. I will make you into a big nation. And then this is a very beautiful thing. Va'avarecha, I will bless you. Va'agadal, va'agadla shemecha, and I will make your name big. V'haya bracha, and you will be a blessing. So there's a lot of the word blessing here. I don't think it's in the first, it's not in the first pasuk, but in this pasuk, Lagoy Gadol va'avarchecha, I will bless you, and you will be a blessing. And I think in the next pasuk it says again, va'avarcha, and I will bless mevarchecha, those who bless you, Lecha, and I will curse, or nivrachu b'cha, I'll curse those who curse you, and I will bless in you all the nations of the earth, all the nations of the earth. So I don't know, do you remember, Suri, what Diane said about the 5 words of blessing, that we have all this, I will bless, you will be a blessing, I will
No.
bless those who bless you, and the earth shall be blessed in you. So she said in the first few words of creation, Hashem talks and he mentions light 5 times. And here when Avraham is getting all this connection of through you will be blessing, you'll be a blessing, I will give you blessing, through you will come blessing, that's connected. There's 5 times that we mention the idea of blessing, and it's connected to the 5 times in the beginning of creation that Hashem's talking about the light. And then there's also the idea that when Hashem created the world, he created this special light that he hid away for the righteous, the Or HaGanuz. And there's also an explanation that in that light is found in Eretz Yisroel. So all the people who've spent time in Eretz Yisroel, we know that there's something there that inspires us to feel a little differently. We feel tangibly different. I guess I can speak about it because I just came back. And the funny thing is that my husband and I were saying before we left, and we had been in the war broke out on Shabbos morning, and we only left the following Thursday evening. And we were saying, better a day in Israel, even during the war, than a day in Monsey on a regular day. So it's kind of crazy, but we sort of, there's an energy there that I read a beautiful essay today about, not an essay, but a girl in seminary, and she's in Israel, and her parents were telling her that she should leave, it's not safe. And this letter that she wrote to her family was so touching. She was basically saying, you can't believe that even though it's dangerous here, and even though there's struggle here, I feel more alive and more connected and more joyful. I mean, even though there's tragedy, it's amazing, but people are joyful in the midst of tragedy in a sort of weird way. And I feel more alive, and you can't tell me to come home because you don't know what it's like. It was very touching, this letter that she wrote. So let's look at this thing about the blessing. I'm going to give you a blessing. So Rashi says that I'm asking you to go on a journey. And while you go on a journey, usually traveling diminishes your chances of having a child, because you on the move, you're stressed, you lose money, and you had a reputation in one place and you move and no one knows you in your new place. But Rashi is explaining that Hashem is saying, actually, you're going to have children, your reputation is going to increase, and your money is going to increase, and your name's going to increase. And then Rashi tells us over here, I'm actually going to even increase your name literally from Avram to Avraham. And then here's that Rashi telling us the 248, the mount that connects to a person's limbs. And then this is a beautiful thing that that through you will be a blessing. Okay, so we've got all of that, and I just want to jump to this piece that so before I jump onto the piece, that I'll bless you, and whoever curses you will be cursed. And what does it mean that I'll bless you? That a person can say, you should be like Avraham. That that it should be a blessing, that people should feel, that it's a blessing to be like Avraham. Anyway, so the next part that I want to talk about in the Parsha is this thing about Avram's mazal, and this thing about him having children. But before I get to that, there's a little piece which is interesting when Avram gets involved in a war, and he gets involved in the saving of hostages, savings of hostages. So let's just see where it is. So it's in the fourth piece. It's in the fourth piece, and it's 14:11. Let's go. By the way, you can always bring a chumash to the class, and then if it's hard for you to read here, yeah. So it starts off, we'll start from Yud Gimel 13, and it says, fugitive, but really it's a survivor, that Sodom got invaded. Sodom got invaded. Let's see if we need the Rashi over here. Sodom got attacked, and a fugitive, he was actually a survivor of this attack, and Rashi tells us it was Og, actually. Og managed to even survive from the flood.
The flood, yeah, he hung on to the ark.
Right, but he's quite a crafty fellow, because it says that he comes and he tells Avram that what does he tell Avram? He tells Avram that his nephew has been taken captive, and he armed his trained men and those born in his house, 318, and he went to get involved. So this was a big war of the 4 kings and the 5 kings, and which was kind of like a world war at that time. And somehow Lot gets involved, gets captured, and then Avraham right away gets involved, and he goes to save Lot because Lot's been taken hostage. And it's very interesting, this idea of how many men did he actually take with him. So it says that basically his trained men, chanichav, the ones that he had given chinuch to, the ones that he had trained in Torah and mitzvahs. But then it says that when he says that if any of them, I don't know if it said it over here, but if any of them felt like they had sinned or something, they should leave. And there's a medrash that he only went with Eliezer, and the gematria of Eliezer's name is 318. So is it possible that he went and he fought the war just with Eliezer? So it's hard to imagine that he just did it with Eliezer, but he fought with Hashem. Hashem helped him. Let me just see what I have over here. So those who he trained, and then it actually says chanichu. So Rashi explains that really it in the footnotes to the Rashi, which I have in my Chayenu, so it says all of the ones that Avraham had given chinuch to did not set out for battle, because he sent back all those who had sinned. So he only had Eliezer. So, but this is one opinion. The Gur Aryeh suggests that he took specifically 318 men to show that it was really with the merit of Eliezer that they could win the battle, and to make the miracle have somewhat of a look of natural occurrence. So he did take 318 men, but the Gur Aryeh, who's a commentator, suggests that the only reason he took that amount of men is that he didn't want the miracle of him being successful against all these big nations and powerful nations to look too miraculous. He wanted it to look a little bit natural. So he took, let me look like I'm fighting with an army, but really God was fighting for him. And he was victorious because God was on his side. For example, David HaMelech against Goliath. David takes a stone, 5 stones, and then it says he combined all those stones into one, and he fought basically with the words of Shema Yisrael. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, bam. And he throws one stone and he defeats Goliath because he's fighting with the spirit of Hashem. So that's what Avraham does, and he's able to release the hostage, Lot. He releases Lot, and that's that victory. And then the last part is this part that really we can't skip because it's so fundamental. This thing about Avraham and his children. I've taught it many times. It's one of my favorite pieces of Torah because I'm interested in astrology, and I find it very interesting how Hashem gets him to transcend his astrological reality. And so we come to Pasuk 5 here. And so let's just go. So after what happened, which is this war, Hashem talks to Avraham and he says, don't be afraid, Avraham, I'm your shield, and you're going to have a huge reward. And then Avraham says, well, what's the point of my reward? I don't have any children. You're going to give me a big reward, and it's just going to go to my manservant, to Eliezer, who's not even a Jew, right? It's Eliezer of Damascus. I don't have any children. What's going to be? I'm not so excited. And then Avraham says, you haven't given me any seed, and behold, who's going to inherit from me? And then Hashem says, don't worry, Eliezer's not going to inherit from you. The one who will spring from your own innards, you're going to have your own child, don't worry. And then this is the famous verse, V'yotze oiso, and he took him, hachutza, outside his tent, outside the natural order, outside a rational framework. V'yome habet na, please look down. Habet na means, it says here look heavenward, but it's often explained to actually look down. Habet na hashamayma, to the heavens. Usfor hakochavim, and count the stars. Im tuchal lispor otam, if you're able to count them, so will be your seed. Now, if somebody wants to read this last Rashi, and then we'll wrap up. Does somebody just want to read this? He took him outside. It'll be basically a repetition of what I've said already, but it's very nice to see it inside.
English or Hebrew, or read in English?
Yeah, read it in English, yeah.
Okay. And according to the simple meaning, he took him out of his tent outdoors to see the stars. But according to its midrashic interpretation, he said to him, go out of your astrology, for you have seen in the signs of the zodiac that you are not destined to have a son. Indeed, Abram will have no son, but Avraham will have a son. Similarly, Sarai will not give birth, but Sarah will give birth. I will give you another name, and your destiny will change. Another explanation, he took him out of the terrestrial sphere and lifted him above the stars. This explains the expression of, I can't see that word.
Habetna.
Okay. Looking down from above.
Right. So there's 2 things that he did. A, he changed their muzzle because he changed their name. You change a person's muzzle. If they're sick, we add on the name Chaim. We change muzzle with the name. So he changed their muzzle. Sarai became Sarah. Avram became Avraham. So that's a change of the muzzle. And the other explanation is he took him outside the whole world of muzzle. And Diane explained today in the class that I heard earlier that you will be like a star. You are a star. You are shining. Look at those stars. You are like the star. The whole world of stars is below you. You are higher than the stars. You're not just high, it's not just that we're changing your muzzle, but you're above muzzle. You're higher than those realities of planets organizing and having power over people's destiny. You in another place, you in another dimension. So that is what I wanted to share with you all today. And now, just before we end, I'll read the Hayom Yom that I wanted to read at the beginning and didn't. And then we'll wrap up. And if there's any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. But the Hayom Yom, it was actually Sunday's Hayom Yom. It says, in the era since the giving of the Torah, the stages in our divine service are first remove the foreskin of the body, then remove the foreskin of the tongue, and then remove the foreskin of the heart. So what does it mean, remove the foreskin of the body? Work on your actions. What does it mean, remove the foreskin of the tongue? It means watch your speech. And then what does it mean, remove the foreskin of the heart? It actually says that refers to our thoughts. And then it says, Avraham Avinu, who lived before the giving of the Torah, first he recognized his creator, that was fixing his thought. Then he publicized God's existence, that was fixing his speech. And then he actually did mitzvot and performed the circumcision. He fixed on the level of action. So that's what I wanted to share with you, and happy to hear any comments or responses or any reactions, how all of this lands for you. The Eretz Yisroel, the energy, the astrology, the extra soul. There's like a whole lot of things to think about. If you want, maybe everyone's just tired and wants to go to sleep now. We got to wake up. Waking up time. Too many ideas, too much talking.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's just so much. Yeah.
Well, all of that came just from like a couple.
I know it's more. I know
It's incredible how dense Chumash is.
Like one word can take you, how long to. So did Hashem originally not want Avraham to have children, or did he, like, because also he could have been born at at another time as well, that his astrological signs would have melded to be, to make him destined?
I think that's a great question. And I think that the idea is the journey, the moving towards your potential, the work to get to your potential, the transformation, the going beyond the natural. That's the essence of what the journey had to be. If he would have just been born at the right place at the right time with the right, it wouldn't be the story. And that's the whole quintessential point, is that story of the journey, the coming, the traveling, the arriving at the land. That's supposed to be the instructive part to us,
right?
Him transforming in his connection to God, how he transforms into a different kind of a being, a person. And that's supposed to be inspiring to us. If he would have just gotten it at the beginning, then there wouldn't be, then where do we go? How do we evolve and advance?
Got it.
But thank you. That's a good question.
Oh, you're welcome.
Any other comments, questions, responses? Okay, so I would like to end that really the point of being in Eretz Yisroel, going to Eretz Yisroel, learning about Eretz Yisroel is in a way to bring that energy of Eretz Yisroel home and to live with it in our daily life and wherever we are. And I've explained many times that the word ratz, to run, is connected to Eretz Yisroel, that wherever we are, there's a nice Hasidic expression, mach do Eretz Yisroel, make this place into Eretz Yisroel, that we feel like we're revealing God's will for us, the higher dimensions of our soul. We